Hey guys, welcome back to Patrol Clip. Sounds and more sounds. Music and more music. These are some of the most key elements of magic when it comes to movie making. Background music can become super famous and even be nominated for Oscar awards. You hear this music and immediately it will become stuck in your head from the beginning. Many of these songs and scores are used over and over in all kinds of commercials, concerts, and performed by artists for decades and decades. It's next to impossible to make a good movie or TV series without a main theme that gives you the characteristics that make it all come together with the iconic movie. It is much easier and more frequent to find these themes and the films that become iconic. But what if instead of a beautiful song or a song from a rock band that makes you wake up and recognize what the movie is, it's instead a distinctive sound? The kind of sound that stays with you forever in your memory, and you'll just say to yourself, oh. On this occasion, Patrol Clip offers you 10 iconic sounds that will definitely remain in the minds of everyone around the world. But before we begin, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and ring the little notification bell for more videos like this. Here we go! This sound has crossed from sea to shining sea and from jungle to the big cities for years and has been part of the film culture and even been copied and reproduced hundreds of times. Tarzan is a fictional character created by Edgar Rice Burroughs. The first appearance was in the pulp magazine All Story Magazine in October 1912 and later adapted as a novel, Tarzan of the Apes, to which 23 sequels happened. That's a lot. In addition to having been adapted numerous times, especially in comics, as well as in cinema and television. There's a list of 89 films about Tarzan between 1918 to 2010, starting with Elmo Lincoln in 1918, which is a silent film, so of course, no iconic cry was ever heard in this. But since then, dozens of tapes and actors have been reproduced and acted in this role. Only Johnny Weissmuller starred in it 12 times. Tarzan's distinctive scream was created by sound specialist Douglas Shearer, who used famous Austrian yodels at different speeds. Later on, Weissmuller learned to imitate them, and it's been the representative cry of Tarzan to this day. And of course, we're not dismissing the animated films that have left great benefits with this iconic character and his unequaled cry. Speaking of screams, these are hallmarks of both human and animal characteristics. In this case, one might think that it's an animal, but immediately you hear them and you know that that is the legendary martial artist Bruce Lee. This iconic sound has been played hundreds, if not thousands of times. Since the beginning of his career, his characteristic sound not only represents the kia, or typical attack cry in karate, but rather it seems a squeak that has left all fans captivated for decades. This iconic sound has been present in hundreds of fighting video games, and definitely many martial artists have tried to imitate it without much success. We've got to put this on our list because having created an indistinguishable fighting style and heritage of martial arts, his legacy will remain in our minds and hearts forever. Me Up Scotty is the famous phrase heard before hearing this iconic teleportation sound. Teleportation is of course a fictional technology from the fictional universe of Star Trek. It included many spaceships of galaxies that allowed to carry matter, organic or not, to great distances without using physical means of transport. The teleporter was introduced in the Gene Roddenberry series and invented by scientist Emery Erickson. The sound is key within the series, where it's shown as something definitely futuristic and that set a precedent in science fiction. The artifact and its iconic sound saved Captain Kirk and his crew countless times. The transporter effect was achieved by a simple fade out of the subject with some glitter thrown in. It's definitely the most iconic sound that teleports all of us viewers to the best scenes of the number of Star Trek chapters and movies. As far as terror goes, we could go on forever about the large number of horror movies that exist. And if we focus specifically on the diabolical and demonic possession, well, there isn't much to compete with The Exorcist as far as that goes. Robert Knudsen and Chris Newman won the Academy Award for sound mixing, and it's hard to think of a film in which sound is used more effectively. The Exorcist was nominated for 10 Academy Awards but won just 2 for sound mixing and for William Peter Blatty adapted screenplay. Mercedes Agnes McCambridge, an American actress of radio, stage, film, and television, provided the dubbed voice of Pazuzu, the demon possessing the young girl Regan, played by Linda Blair in The Exorcist. To sound absolutely as disturbing as possible, McCambridge insisted on swallowing raw eggs, chain smoking, and drinking whiskey to make her harsh voice and her performance aggressive as hell. Pun intended. Alright, admit it, there is no sound that could cause more panic than the sound that comes from a madman who will not stop at anything to kill you. Friday the 13th is an American horror franchise that comprises 12 slasher films, a television series, novels, comic books, video games, and tie-in merchandise. The franchise mainly focuses on the fictional character Jason Voorhees, who drowned as a boy at Camp Crystal Lake due to the negligence of camp staff. Now, we all know what the sound of a buzzsaw sounds like, but if it comes to listening to it on any level where a madman with a hockey mask can come to mind chasing us, just makes it more pure, and with a shitload of terror. The movie was so successful that a series like Friday the 13th the series was also developed after the movie Jason Lives was released. Now, even if you are terrified and you want to run hearing any strange sounds, please don't move, because we got more iconic sounds in the history of cinema. Apparently, when it comes to sounds that really stick with you in popularity for cinema, terror really sticks out. Amateur audiences are filled with delight and adrenaline that rush through the body and makes us want to chase these films. Ju-On, The Grudge, premiered at the Screamfest Film Festival on October 18th of 2002 by Lionsgate Films. The film received favorable reviews from critics, but it was unfavorably compared to another Japanese horror film called The Ring. Immediately, the public went crazy, and of course within the series of films that derived from this first effort. It spawned a franchise, an American remake, 2006 and 2009 sequels, and a 2020 sidequel to the remake, and a prequel television series entitled Ju-On Origins that premiered on Netflix in 2020. But it's the sound of Kayako's psyche that causes the biggest panic and makes this iconic franchise go from hoarse sound to bone ringing, while she's walking in terrifying time. There's no way that this ghost and its terrifying sound can't come to your mind with the 17 movies they've got out there. Of course, the sound engineers in the film weren't aiming to exactly reproduce the sounds of a cup-rumbling T-Rex. After all, they didn't have a 65-million-year-old phonograph to go by, so they created the Tyrannosaurus screech by combining the yelps and yells of other living animals. Movie sound engineers have been cleverly combining various tones for years. But definitely, be that as it may, they've certainly managed to impress us with a mixture of sounds that became the emblem of the Jurassic Park series. According to the book, The Making of Jurassic Park, an adventure 65 million years in the making, the T-Rex roar from the film was a combination of a baby elephant's squeal, an alligator's gurgling, and a tiger's snarl. That's a hell of a mix. Rydstrom says in his own words, "So once again, a small animal making a small sound slowed down a little bit has more interest to us than what a big animal might do." Now, who could imagine that another gigantic monster could be so iconic by its sound? Godzilla's on this list just like T-Rex because of how well it captivates audiences with that presented sound on screen. Ethan Van der Rijn and Eric Adal designed the sound for the new movie. Van der Rijn says, "I think that the Godzilla roar probably tops the King Kong roar in terms of iconness." In the 1954 original, the sound effects team tried unsuccessfully to use animal sounds to create the roar. It was Japanese composer Akira Ifukube who had the idea to use a musical instrument to create the shriek we all know. It was actually a double bass using a leather glove coated with pine tar rosin to create friction. They rubbed it against the string of the double bass to create that "eh" sound. And over the years, there have been a lot of Godzilla movies, and it turns out that they all have very different versions of that roar. 1955, 1969, and 1998, but the 2014 version is actually one of the best. Unfortunately, the creators swore not to reveal the secret of how they did that, so it's actually copyright protected. There's probably no other sound more iconic than this one, and well, we wouldn't be Patrol Clip if we didn't put this one on our list. Ben Burtt was the sound designer for the lightsaber, and he explained that lightsabers are one of his favorite sounds and in fact was the very first sound that he made for the whole series. It all began in a projection booth with some very old simplex projectors in them, and they had an interlock motor which connected them to the system, and they would sit there and make this idle humming sound, and it would slowly change in pitch and would beat against another motor. Then there were two motors or they would harmonize with each other. It was kind of that inspiration for the lightsaber, and he went and recorded it. The other half came from walking with a live microphone by accident in front of a TV set and creating the humming sound. Pretty wild, huh? Without a single doubt, this sound is going to be reflected for millennia. There is no sound on the face of the earth as unique as this one. And besides being unique, it gives soul to one of the most feared and recognizable characters in the galaxy, Lord Vader. Darth Vader's booming voice and breathing are often impersonated by children and childish grown-ups by placing a cup to their mouths and breathing heavily. Well, of course, Vader's actual voice was recorded by James Earl Jones and manipulated to give it extra bassy tones, but what about the breathing? It was explained by Ben Burtt that the Vader sound came about from the first film, and the script described him as kind of a strange dark being who was in some kind of life support system. His breathing was supposed to be strange, like some sort of mechanic or motor, and maybe part robot or part human, but they didn't really know, and the original concept of Darth Vader was a very strange noise-producing individual when he came into the scene. So the solution was simple. Use a scuba breathing apparatus. Bert would place a microphone onto the deep sea diving gear and just breathe into it in a variety of ways. So kids, there's a pretty good idea. Next time you're on holiday and you want to go on an underwater swim, why not try to scare some fish into thinking you're the Dark Lord of the Sith? Haha. Well, that's it for this video today. If you liked what you heard today, please give us a like and share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and drop some comments below for us. We want to hear from you. Otherwise, until next time.